Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Townhall Talk on Asaase 99.5 Accra. And I am your host, Caleb Ahenakwa. Tonight, we delve into a topic that strikes right at the heart of Ghana's democratic journey. While often hailed as a beacon of peaceful democratic governance in Africa, Ghana has not been immune to localized conflict, particularly in the northern regions. Our guest tonight is none other than Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu-Gyamfi, the board chairman of the National Peace Council. We will be exploring the intricate dynamics of communal conflict that have left a lasting impact on the affected regions, delving into the NPC's role in fostering peace, stability, and unity in the face of such challenges. Now, as the country also braces itself for the upcoming elections in December, just this year, we'll also be diving into the initiatives and engagement the National Peace Council has in its playbook to ensure Ghana remains stable before, during, and after the elections. With over 300 conflicts scattered across the country, the stakes are certainly high, and the role of the National Peace Council is more crucial than ever. So stay tuned as we navigate through the complexities of Ghana's political landscape, seeking insight into the National Peace Council's effort to secure a peaceful and united nation. Thank you for doing the listening. Without further ado, let's welcome as our guest for tonight's episode, Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu-Gyamfi to Townhall Talk. Good evening, Reverend.
Good evening.
Good to have you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Prior to coming in studios, I was saying that this is just one of the rare occasions we get you in person. And I'm glad you did take time off your busy schedules to join us this evening to talk peace and put some insights and perspectives to the reports of conflict dotted across the country. Well, Reverend, let's zoom in right into the conversation, and people will want to find out that in as much as you have rightly indicated that across the country there are some zones which have been highlighted to be 300 in number, but evidently, in as much as these are clearly conflict areas, the concentration of these conflicts have been in the northern regions. Could you tell us why this is so?
Thank you very much for having us. First, let me correct the impression that the largest concentration of conflicts currently is in the central region.
Interesting.
There are currently 298 conflict cases that are being handled by the Peace Council. And these cover issues of ethnic and communal conflict, land conflict, chieftaincy, religious conflict, political election-related, resource conflicts, and then there are others that we've put together. The highest concentration of conflict is found in the central region. They have 50 cases spanning across 7 land litigation issues, 6 chieftaincy, 4 religious, 12 political issues, 6 resource conflicts. Now, they are followed closely by the Upper East region. They have 43 different conflicts spanning across ethnic conflict, 22 land litigation issues, 19 chieftaincy issues, and 1 classified under other. Then we come to the northern region. They have 42 cases, 4 ethnic cases, 14 land issues, 11 chieftaincy, religious conflicts 8, and then 4 political and 1 other. So we have the least region with conflict is Greater Accra.
Not surprising.
And that is why for us in Accra, sometimes we can make a lot of noise because we think that there's nothing happening. But it's because we have the least. The advantage that Greater Accra has is that the office of the National Peace Council is here, headquarters is here. Then we have also the Regional Peace Council also in Accra. And so we're able to deal with issues much quicker than what we find in the other regions that are being supported by just the regional peace councils. But in all, we have 19 ethnic and ethnic communal conflicts, 89 land litigation issues, 113 chieftaincy issues, 24 religious issues, 25 political, resource 6, and 22 other. So much as a lot of people put a lot of attention on political issues, that is not the worst situation that we have. Currently, the greatest conflict we have in Ghana is with chieftaincy.
Right. And that is why a lot of the time the attention is taken up north. In as much as they don't rank high, they usually have a chunk of the attention because the major triggers has to do with chieftaincy dispute. Let's do a bit of history lessons here. How did we get there? Well,
I think that the country is getting much more exposed, and people are now taking a lot more responsibility. They are becoming much more enlightened about issues. In the past, not too many people thought that lands located in certain areas were quite important. For those of us who came to Accra much earlier, places like St. John's, Taifa, and all those, nobody thought that anybody would live there. Right now, those places are in the center of Accra. And so there were a lot of people who bought land in those places. They were not particular about them. Then with time, we began to realize that those places were coming into the center of town. And that is why we have all these litigation issues going on. And then also land demarcation. If you look at Kaswa, we in Accra, and sometimes we think Kaswa is part of Greater Accra, but Kaswa is actually in the central region. And so when we are having certain issues between Greater Accra and Central Region, you find this conflict going on in between those places. And we have a lot of issues going on around those other places. So these are some of the things that we haven't. The other thing is that a lot of politics has been infused into most of these challenges that we have.
When you say politics, are you saying that a lot of these political figures are interfering?
That's right. We begin to see a lot of those things happening.
But one would argue, not to cut you, Reverend, is that they have the influence. So in as much as they are interfering, wouldn't you rather capitalize on their influence to mitigate the issue?
The influence is that instead of dealing with the issues, they come in with a side seeking that those who are in conflict will side with them, with their political party. And so they come in with the political influence along those lines. And then it deepens the conflict. So instead of looking at the issues themselves, you get to a point where that issue is turned. Now it becomes, for instance, NDC and MPP fighting, whereas there's an original issue that must be dealt with. And these are some of the things that we're dealing with. Then we also have politicians who have also gotten into radio and television and using these things also for their political agenda. So an issue comes up and you realize that somebody sits on radio and speaks, virtually pushing a certain angle of a case. By the time you get in, you realize that that is not probably what it is. But then they would have infused that into the minds of the public, and that creates a lot of tension across the country.
It appears and comes off as you are trying your best, and not just you, I'm referring to the National Peace Council, but then whenever you try to make progress, there's always a bit of an obstacle and in the way, and it leads to some form of retrogression. Before we get into the specifics, what generally have been the key challenges you have faced in managing especially communal conflicts?
Well, the issue is that one, we are understaffed. Currently, we have a staff of 66 manning all the issues across the country. In terms of the boards and the regional councils, they are all they are not full-time staff. And so you have the secretariat running a lot of things on behalf of the board, and then we come in to deal with the issues. And in most cases, most people wouldn't want to deal with the staff. They want to deal with the board members. And especially when it comes to certain national issues, everybody wants to see the chairman and that sort of thing. So it creates its own challenges. And once you are dealing with one case, something else comes up, everybody is drawing your attention to that. You have to leave this and come and resolve that. And we have resource challenges, especially when we're dealing with chieftaincy cases. If you want to bring a chief to Accra to resolve an issue, you must be sure that you are catering for not less than about 20 people. He comes with a linguist, he comes with somebody else, and this and that. And you have to bring all of them. You have to bring them to Accra. You have to find them a hotel. I mean, so the resource to deal with these issues also becomes a challenge for us. So these are some of the challenges we are dealing with.
You mentioned understaff. Clearly, number of 66 you did earlier highlight. What number are you looking at in preventing or taking away the name understaff eventually from your outfit?
For instance, by now, National Peace Council have not less than 300, because you need lawyers in there who will analyze every given situation, because cases come before us. Fortunately, at the national board, we are privileged to have somebody like Dr. SKB Asante with us, so he's able to dissect the issues, tell us legally, this is feasible, this is not feasible, this is within a mandate, this is not within a mandate, can we get these people to handle this? But you don't have those things in the regions. And so you have that challenge. But we need those people to be there. We need research staff who would look at the issues that are happening and determine what is the best way to handle these things. And those things will help us to be much more preventive than the way it is. Because sometimes, even though we know the hotspots and we anticipate that certain things might happen, they overtake us. You are there and then something just happens because we don't have enough staff to deal with the issues on the ground.
Now, let me take you back to 2011. There was a meeting between the West Africa Civil Society Institute as well as the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. And the essence or aim of the meeting was to come up with strategies resolving communal conflict in Ghana, looking at the role of non-state actors, of which your outfit is clearly part of. One of the recommendations was restructuring the National Peace Council. Now, you tell me that you have challenges, especially with understaffing and resources. This was a recommendation they clearly gave at that meeting, and I believe that that might not have been the first time that recommendation was given. Time and again, you keep calling for some attention to be given to the Peace Council. Is there a reason why you haven't had these concerns addressed?
Well, I think that from the 2011 recommendation, a lot has changed with the Peace Council. You know, the Peace Council evolved from 2006, and it began as a group that was led by the Catholics. And then a few other people came in, and then gradually evolved until 2011 when a lot of things changed. So the structure has really changed. And what we have now, I think, is the best. The only thing that, to us, is a major challenge is that because the board members are not full-time staff, sometimes people expect them to react to certain things as quickly as possible. But most of these people are heads of churches, they are heads of religious institutions, are chiefs and others who are doing their own thing. By the time an issue comes up and everybody is beginning to cry, that is when you have to bring all of them together, and moving them from the various places to come in creates a little bit of delay. And sometimes the public is asking, where is the Peace Council? Why are they not speaking? But these are people who are not full-time workers. You need time to pull them together to be able to do what ought to be done.
There's a Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. Is this a ministry you have to reach out to have your concerns addressed, or who is supposed to ensure that these things are checked?
Well, we collaborate with various institutions, including the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs and then the National House of Chiefs. For instance, we've had this case between Doma Hene and Otumfuo that has been lingering. We had an official complaint coming from a former NP for us to address it. But we thought that the best institution to deal with it first is the National House of Chiefs. So we made a referral to the National House of Chiefs, and we are monitoring what is going on to ensure that they deal with it. We don't want the Peace Council to be the first institution to get in, whereas there's an institution that is responsible for those issues.
Are you quite optimistic that if you find a way to permanently employ or reserve the board members who have who are just in this outfit for temporary reasons, if you permanently have them on in the outfit, we could at least make some progress in executing their roles?
Well, we've examined that carefully. But in the crafting of the act that established the Peace Council, these individuals are representing certain institutions, and in most cases, they are actively serving in those institutions. Like, you need a representative for the Christian Council of Ghana, the Catholic Bishops Conference, the Council of Charismatic Churches, Pentecostal Charismatic Council, the Ahmadiyya Movement, the Al-Sunnah, Tijaniya, representative for the House of Chiefs, CSOs, and traditional worshippers, and 2 representatives from the government. Now, most of these people, especially the heads of religious institutions, are already actively serving. We are fortunate. For me now, I'm on retirement. So I'm able to give a lot more time to the work than I used to 2 years ago when I was serving as the president of the Ghana Baptist Convention. So because these people are actively in certain portfolios, the challenge we have is that if we want to make them full-time, will they be able to leave their religious institutions to come in here? This has been the battle. But then we still think that there's something that must be done. We don't know how to craft it, but it's an issue that is an ongoing discussion.
And when are we getting resolutions and conclusions on that discussion?
Well, it does not depend on us. We can make a recommendation to the Minister of Interior, to the President.
Until then,
we have to deal with what we have.
Now, let's move away from challenges and talk about successes your outfit has chalked in mitigating conflict historically. We always call on you whenever conflict arises, and you're always speaking to the media. Just a few people know what really you do behind the scenes. Tell us.
Well, a lot is being done. Let me begin from the political angle. The last year, we instituted what we call the Political Party Trust Building Platform. And so we had 2 meetings in our office with all the political parties. And then we had one with them in Pram. And then we had one just before Christmas. Now, this platform is to give the political parties the opportunity to air their grievances. And then we commonly discuss these things to find a solution to these things. It's been a very helpful platform. We are hoping to get back to it in somewhere in February. That will be the first for the year. And we'll be doing these things as we continue to prepare for the elections. It's been a very helpful platform for us. And I think that it helps us to build consensus among ourselves. Secondly, we've been dealing with the issue of religious conflict in education. We saw the Wesley Girls issue and all the things that have not happened. We pursued this whole thing, got to a point where the Minister of Education was to draft an MOU. Unfortunately, this MOU has delayed for 2 years. And so just before the holiday, last year, we pulled together all the mission schools and asked them, look, this issue affects us. So let's deal with it and find a solution. We can make our own recommendation to the Minister of Education and tell them this is what we agreed to. So we set up a committee to look at an MOU that we believe will be acceptable. They brought a first draft. We made some recommendations. We are hoping to meet in February to resolve it finally. And this time we want to bring in other support staff from Xtra and a few other institutions that will help us to craft it well, so that we put in the public domain, and then this issue will be done once and for all.
Again, carry on.
There are also other things that we've done in terms of mitigating issues of vigilantism. We've done training for GPRTU staff, we've done for market women, we've done for student leaders, and we've done for fisher folks, because most of us are worried about extreme terrorists coming from the northern part of our country. Nobody seriously considers what happens to our coast. And with the issues of pirates and others, we thought that it was necessary to do some of these things. So we've done all of those things. And then we've done also training for queen mothers to help them, sensitize them, because they are, in most cases, custodians of our culture when it comes to the chieftaincy institution. And so we've done training for them to help them also to deal with some of the issues that come to us. Then we also inaugurated 40 peace ambassadors within the key areas where we had challenges in the last election. Odododio, Ashiaman, Techiman, and all those places that the key issues were. We pulled together 40 people from those constituencies. We sat down, we did a very thorough discussion of all the issues that went on. And then we trained 40 peace ambassadors to work within those communities to help us deal with some of the issues that are of concern to us. Within the northern region, we have trained 150 people to deal with the threats of vigilantism and violent extremism. And we keep doing all of these things to make sure that we can get support on the grassroots. Then we did also 2 dialogues between, one, civilians, security services, CSOs, and the public in Koforidua. We're there for 3 days. We brought the security services together to help the public now to air their views. What do they think about the police? What do they think about the army? And all of those things that have been of concern to us. And we spend time for them to, the police and the security service, to hear what civilians are saying. And then also they gave their responses to some of these. Then we had another one in Pram Pram, just between the political parties and the police, because they police the elections and the grievances that they've had. We must say that we have had some successes. And most of the things we did in those 2 training program consultations was what we tested during the last 2 by-elections in Kumewu and then also the Asin. In those 2 elections, we didn't have the kind of challenge that we had in Ayawaso. Now that tells us that we are making some progress. Now what we want to do now is the things that they were able to put in place, will they be able to deploy the same facility during the general elections? So that is what we are looking up to. And so the consultations will continue to ensure that we can get them to do some of the things that they've already tested on the ground.
You're able to chalk all these with the little resources you have?
Yes.
There was no extra support anywhere?
Well, I must say that a lot of the training programs are financed by partners. We have the USAID, UNDP, Canadian Embassy, the Dutch Embassy. They all come in. The US, they've been of support to us. In terms of vehicles, we have USAID giving us some vehicles for our northern project. So those are the areas where these things, these resources. The government pays the staff. They give us something for goods and services, but generally it is not enough. And so we go to partners and make sure that we can get the partners to come in to help. The fortunate thing for us is that after the presentation to Parliament, just before the end of the year, in terms of the budget approvals, I think that this is the first year that Parliament has given us a little bit more, even though it was not up to what we expected. We bought a budget of 25 million. And they gave us 13 and plus. And so we still have a shortfall of about 11 million that we must find. And this is where we have to go to partners to see whether we can find support. But again, we set up the Peace Fund 2 years ago, expecting that the public will contribute towards this. Because the Peace Council's work should be like national security, where there is money available immediately something happens. Because something happens immediately, somebody shoots somebody, everybody's crying, where is the Peace Council? Now, you can't now write a proposal to partners and tell partners, can you give me money to go and resolve this? By the time the money comes in, that whole issue is out of hand.
Are you indirectly citing that as a result of these little to no funds, there's always a delay from the Peace Council to react?
Yeah, it's part of the challenge that we do have. So by the time the issue comes up, like the board members are not all in Accra. You have somebody coming from Takra, there's somebody coming from Mampong, somebody coming from Ho and Kumasi and others. By the time you bring them all together, you're looking at flights for them to come back immediately. Those who are traveling by road, they should get here. You have to provide their hotel accommodation for the number of days we have to be here. And especially when we get into elections, sometimes they are in town for about 2 weeks. And we have to make sure we accommodate them. You provide all the things that they need for all the period. And especially when there are also serious cases around. We bring them to when the early days of this parliament where we're having all those challenges, the team were virtually in Accra for almost a month. They were moving around. The Wesley Girls case came in soon after that. We spend a lot of time running around doing all kinds of things. So we need resources on hand that we can deploy immediately something happens, so that it will make our work easier.
Well, a good call coming from the board chairman of the National Peace Council. Now, like I earlier indicated, we want to get into the specifics, and you did say that, there are 300 conflict thematic areas, that are dotted across the country. And surprisingly, we were all expecting, as a result of the report taking place up north, for them to rank higher. Central Region, however, tops this particular in terms of ranking. And the major issue now has to do with chieftaincy dispute. Has there in any way been the interplay of ethnic groups contributing to the complexity of these chieftaincy disputes?
I think, by and large, ethnicity is becoming an issue in this country. and especially when politicians hype it. Vote for me because I'm this, vote for me because I'm that, I'm coming from here. Now you see all the agitations about running mates. He must come from here, she must come from there. All those things are coming. Now, as soon as we start doing those things, we are funding a certain level of ethnicity, and people now begin to pull themselves together. And the least thing, in the midst of all these political things happening, if somebody slips a little bit about one ethnic group, it's going to be another trouble for us. And so these are critical issues that we do have. Then we are having the religious bit of it. Immediately, the MPP elected their flag bearer. Tempers went high immediately. Within that same week, immediately religious conflicts were raising their heads between Muslims and Christians. The council had to step in immediately, issue a press release, and then do all kinds of consultations to calm tempers down. But that was the beginning. We anticipate that this is going to come up again. And therefore, we are putting structures in place to deal with some of these things. We've monitored a lot of WhatsApp platforms and the things that people are writing, both Christians and Muslims, and we are mindful of all of these things. But before we went on Christmas break, we did one religious dialogue in Teman, where we brought Christians and Muslims and traditional worshippers together, just also to deliberate on these issues, to ensure that we don't allow religion and our traditional worship things to get into the center of our politics. Because for those who've done conflict studies, the issues of tribe and the issues of religion are two key things that if you touch, then we're going to be in big trouble. And so we do everything we can to ensure that we minimize these things as much as possible.
Well, as you go about, trying to find a way to minimize these issues, especially as we near the election period, in the northern region, and there is an issue. What really is the issue here? There are conflicting thoughts to what the triggers are up north. Communal clashes, chieftaincy dispute, land issues. Per what you have gathered, per your observations, per what your members and representatives gather on the ground, what are the triggers?
I think that several issues, all the issues that you've mentioned, land, tribal, all of these things are playing a role in some of these things happening. And then also, as I said, we've also had these radio stations in those localities that are aligned, and therefore they are constantly broadcasting things and putting information out that affects another tribe or another group.
And they informing, per what you have got, and they rather informing the audience or locals in the area.
From our observation, most of the things that they are doing are rather instigating one group against another. And we brought the attention of the Media Commission to this. And remember a few days back, Media Commission had to put out a strong statement against some of these stations and calling even for some of them to be shut down. So we've had these things that have been a major problem for us.
Because I recall the last incident up north. I'm unable to recall the exact area. There was, the threat happened on WhatsApp, and the announcement was being done by some of these groups on air to try to warn people that this is likely to happen. But then you also say that in as much as they try to propose a solution, they are in themselves triggers to a lot of these conflicts.
What we're trying to do now is to do a lot of media training for our media personnel to understand that once you sit behind the microphone, you must be very circumspect in what you say and how you say it. And sometimes it even comes up from their own reportage. Something has happened. They don't have enough information. Somebody's relaying information from outside. They are not verified, and therefore they put it out. And as soon as the information goes out, it becomes a different story. By the time you get the facts, you realize that the situation is not really what it is. And sometimes people fault us that Peace Council has not responded to this or that. By the time we get into the real facts of the issue, because we don't work with hearsay, and it's not that because we just heard something, we respond immediately. We must get the facts. We have to do the analysis. We have to ensure that the information is accurate, is something to be acted on. Some of these cases, by the time you do the analysis, you realize that it is not what it was supposed to be. You take the case of the Wesley Girls issue. By the time we met the Methodist Church, we met the school authorities, we met the PTA, and then we met the religious institutions, Christian Council, the Methodist Church. We met with the Muslim caucus in Parliament. and discuss all the things. Finally, we met the family themselves. When the family met us and told us exactly what happened, we felt that if we had spoken to them first, we wouldn't have even been doing all the rounds that we did, because their story was totally different from what had been in the public domain. So for us as Peace Council, we always want to make sure that we have the real facts that we can work on, because knowing what our situation is in this country, if you don't take care, somebody can even sue you. And therefore, we don't act on hearsay. We want to be sure of the facts before we act.
And you need money to do that.
That's right.
Now these conflicts, again, have not gone beyond the usual clashes with machetes. They have access to weapons. They've become armed violence and armed attacks. And they are not just attacking themselves, they are even attacking the security personnel that have been put in that area. Security experts will tell you that terrorist groups are likely to exploit the situation and find their way into the country. Again, last year, that particular report was rubbished, but there were signs of some terrorist groups from Burkina Faso hiding their weapons in here. We all know that when these areas are, given into the conflict, they become very volatile in nature. Are we beyond everything that is happening? Could things get out of hand and go beyond the ethnic clashes, the communal conflict, the chieftaincy dispute, to have terrorist groups take advantage of the situation?
That is a possibility, and we are mindful of that. And therefore, for most of our violent extremism trainings, we draw the attention of the public to these things, that if you're not careful, infiltrators will come in and do a lot of things. In Boko, for instance, if you look at the amount of arms that are there and how sophisticated those things are, it is very, very frightening, and we get really alarmed to see all those things going on there. So there's a need for us to continue with that kind of training, to sensitize the public to understand that it can be a very dangerous field for us. And sometimes you hear certain stories that some groups have infiltrated. When we have information, we pass on to national security immediately that this is what we are seeing or this is what we are hearing. So they have to act immediately. So there's that collaboration between our outfit and all these security institutions, where we share a lot of information to make sure that the public is, so the institutions are well informed. But the threat of terrorists coming into the country is very high, and we need to be mindful, especially in the northern part of our country. And I think that the security agents are also highly on top of most of the things that are going on there now.
Is this as a result of the proliferation of weapons in the northern region? Are they the ones, because from that report that came, they were hiding their weapons here, and if they're hiding it here, it means anyone who sees it is likely to have access to it. How are the weapons getting into the hands of these groups?
In one of our training sessions, somebody said that Ghana has not been attacked yet because they find this place to be a safe place to operate from. When we heard it, it raised red flags for us, because they think that we are accommodating and all of those, so keep the country the way it is. But there have been a lot of attempts to infiltrate into our country, and we should not take it for granted. And occasionally you find a few things that skirmishes that show up in the north. We need to be mindful. And so, especially within the Boko enclave, we keep assuring the people that, look, let's deal with these issues and make sure we can resolve it. The fortunate thing for us is that we had the Boko Inter-Ethnic Peace Committee that comprises both the Mamprusis and the Kusasis and the other smaller ethnic groups. Their work broke down because at a certain point the Kusasis pulled out. Finally, we've been able to get them back to the Inter-Ethnic Committee, and we hope that if that holds, then dealing with the issues in Boko could be resolved a little bit much earlier than we anticipated. Some years back, that committee worked, and that was what was holding that whole conflict until they got to a point where that whole thing broke down. But we're praying that with the Kusasis back in that committee, things will work the way we anticipate.
Well, if you're listening to the show, it's Townhall Talk, and my guest for tonight is Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu-Gyamfi. Time check in studios, it's 44 minutes past the hour of 5. We still have some time here. Production is letting me in on the time allocation for our discussion. But clearly we are enjoying, and I believe wherever you are doing the listening, the show is also streaming on Facebook. On Facebook, it's Asaase Radio 99.5. Let's continue our conversation, Reverend. And elections are approaching, and we have a lot to do regarding elections and ensuring that the stability we have is sustained. Now, with the elections approaching, do we know what measures the MPC has in place to ensure that this stability that we've enjoyed for a number of years now is sustained and maintained before, during, and after the elections?
For the elections and part of our program for this year, we will be carrying out some of the things we did during the previous elections, and one of them was the peace education and advocacy against threat of violent extremism, which was done in all the 275 constituencies. We hope to do the same thing this year, and in that kind of training, we target political actors. We look at the youth, we look at religious and traditional leaders at the constituency, as well as the political players, and we take them through this kind of training to ensure that even though they are competing, the competition must be done within a certain framework. Then also there will be another training for the media personnel. We are looking at training on peace building processes and conflict reporting for the media, so that they will be mindful of how to do their reportage and make sure that we don't put out information there that will not be helpful. And then also we'll continue with our tolerance and trust building programs among the political parties. The first one I hope will begin in February, and they will be rolling out all of these things as we go on. Then there's also the national dialogue to address chieftaincy conflicts. In fact, the president wanted us to do this together with him, and we're still waiting to see when that date will be available. But we think that this is quite a bigger platform, because we need a lot of these big chiefs to be there to help us navigate through some of these things that we're looking at. And then also the usual Presidential Peace Pact is also on our radar. We hope that we can get the candidates to come in to commit to the peace of the country, like we did during the last election. We know grievances may arise, but let's deal with it through the courts and find the means to resolve it instead of fighting. And then also the setup of our own situation room for the elections. And normally we start from February, we'll be rolling out all the bi-monthly meetings and gradually move it until we get to a point where we'll be the bi-weekly and then finally the weekly meetings. We build our situation room. We have early warning groups set up across the country. And then during the election week itself, we will have all these things in place to monitor what is going on.
So at the moment, do we have representatives or people being trained, of which you deploy during the elections?
Yes,
Is that
we do. Every year we do.
And you have them ready?
Not at the moment. The programs will start from February. And we work in collaboration with other partners. We have OneUp working with us, and it's been a good collaboration over the years. And so we'll be looking at some of these groups to come in. We have a few CSOs who also provide support. And when we set the early warning groups, we have the security services, we have NCC there, we have electoral commission representative, political party representative. We have all of them, so that together we determine what to do and how to go around these things.
Are funds available for this?
We are still sourcing for the funding. Sometimes it's a challenge, but we hope that some of our partners will come along with us. Because generally during the week of the election, most of the embassies in the country depend on us for information. And therefore, we'll go back to them and ask them to provide the support.
What has been the engagement with political parties? These are wonderful plans and initiatives you have outlined, but you need to find a way to engage them, because they are the actors and they are the major focus of the elections. They have people representing them at the various polling stations, and there are people who are being attacked. They fight amongst themselves. What has been the engagement with these political parties?
I think that at the top level, we do not have a problem between all the political parties, because we meet all the leadership, we talk, we fraternize, we share ideas and all of those things.
So who causes the violence?
The challenge we have is for the leaders to go down to the grassroots and share with them the lessons we are all learning together, And I think that sometimes the way some of these leaders act, they come to our meetings, we are friendly, we collaborate, we share ideas, but when they go out, they tell a different story. And then the actors down there are looking at the second story and not what we've all done together. So those are the issues we are hoping to attack this year, and hope that the political actors at the top will be able to disseminate information to their grassroots.
They clearly haven't done that. How different do you intend to treat it this year?
Well, we still have to talk with them and also maybe adopt new strategies.
Which are?
In terms of our reportage. I think that sometimes, because we are in the security system, we are careful with how much information we put out. And because we're also not putting out too much information, people think that we are not doing anything. And therefore, this year, we have to change the strategy. How do we preserve information, but at the same time put out information?
Because you do realize that when something happens, a conflict rises, they come back to you. It falls back on you.
That's right.
And in some way, it's bad PR for yourself and the outfit. They blame you for not playing your role.
Now, if you look at what we did with the NDC now, the ability to move them to IPAC, it's not been a smooth journey
at all.
It's been a consistent pursuing of them. And I remember one of the top people said, no, he is surprised that the Peace Council is still pursuing them, because for all the things they've done to us, they expected us that we would have withdrawn from them. But we kept on, because we are looking at the interests of the country, not the interests of a political party. And so we keep pursuing them, and we've talked over and over and over and over to bring them to where we are, But we have to keep on. And then we also have to find a way of letting their grassroots members understand that what we are all doing is in the interest of our country, not in the interest of any individual. The challenge we have is that any party in opposition thinks that the National Peace Council is in bed with the government. As soon as they come into government, then they also realize that the story is different. It's been like that all through, When this last board came in, that was just when NPP had come in, they looked at us differently. After a few weeks, then they realized that, look, this is an institution that you need to work with. NDC had the same problem with us. And so we want the grassroots to understand that the Peace Council is here for the peace and the stability of our country. It is not a perfect institution. Sometimes we may not do things the way people expect us to do them. But the reality is that we do things to the best of our ability for the peace and the sustainability of our country.
There is a potential escalation of conflict and in some areas during elections. I mean, over the years, we've had Asaase, West Wuogon in the picture. We've had Sablugu. We have Techiman South, other areas. As part of your plans and initiatives to make sure there is peace, do we know of other areas that have never been mentioned, that have the potential to have some form of escalation of conflict?
We have already developed the conflict map of this country. So we know all the hotspots.
Let us in on those.
There's a whole map that has been done across the whole country. We know everything that is happening. But then, before every election, we are also in collaboration with the police service to also ensure that we give attention to the areas where we think that this is likely to be much more contentious than other places, But the conflict map has been, we did it with the University of Cape Coast. They supported us to get that thing done. And so we've mapped out the whole country. And once you look at the map, it's dotted. You see where everything is and some of the things that we need to be mindful of. But for some of the places that you mentioned, Ododudu, Ashaman, Techiman,
Ayawaso,
all of
those places.
Things. We've already been there. And as I said earlier, we've done training for some people within those communities to ensure that they can help us to mitigate the issues and the conflicts that we are dealing with. So that training has been done, and we have released peace ambassadors into those communities already, But we are not going to sit back. We have to continue pursuing those things to ensure that we do the best we can to minimize conflict.
And these people you have reached out to, are they political figures or just community leaders?
These are just ordinary people. We picked some of them from some institutions, some CSOs, some other organizations that we believe are neutral and can help us to get the work done.
Time and again, when conflict rises during elections, there's always a talk of once investigations are conducted and you fish out who the causes and triggers are, sanctions should be meted out, but we've been quite slow in doing that. It's about time we did. we did have these sanctions meted out. Don't you agree?
Well, I think that crime is crime, and crime must be handled. The unfortunate thing is that the public sometimes fail to hold certain institutions accountable. And in doing that, they come back to Peace Council to triangle with us. That what's the Peace Council saying? For us, we don't have the mandate to prosecute. We don't have the mandate to arrest. All we can do is to talk with our mouth. That's all we. That's the only thing we have, But then issues come in. People have committed crime, and the police must be responsible, and the public must hold the police accountable and tell them, look, we need to see something.
Do you get tired of talking every time when you could clearly find a way to prosecute these people?
Right.
Mention their names.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So we find these things happening. But instead of going to the police and going to the courts, people come back and say, what is the Peace Council saying? We don't have the power to arrest. The act that set us up has not given us that power. We have no power to arrest. We have no power to prosecute. So for us, we do more of talking to get people to understand and look, it's better for us to live in peace than to fight among ourselves. That's all we can do. But we expect that the other institutions that have been assigned that responsibility will take up those roles. We have cases that come to us, and we realize that this one, even though the report is coming to us, there are institutions responsible. Some we recommend, can you go to Xtra? Some we have even asked to go to the this group of lawyers who provide free bono services and things like that. Yeah, we recommend. Can you go to this place? They might be much more helpful than that. We have, even just before the holiday, we had a case coming from number one. He wants us to deal with his case.
When you are not the authority to do so.
Yeah. So you have all kinds of funny things coming in. And these are sometimes distractions while we're doing the other. So when they come in, we make recommendation, look, and then we tell other institutions, this is your responsibility, can you take it up and do all those things? But we think that when people commit crime, they must be dealt with. And so you take a cutlass to go and cut somebody, you go and steal a ballot box, and then these are crimes. And we expect the police to be responsible.
Well, from what you're saying, for anyone listening, if you don't go onto their website to know what your role is, they wouldn't really know what you do. How do you intend to bridge that gap of communication? Do you have any, or you just rather rely on everyone having access to the website to read about your role?
Well, I think that some of the public education we do, especially when we have opportunity like what we've given us, it gives us the platform to share with the public. Initially, a lot of people didn't know. They thought that we had the power, we should go and arrest, and we don't have that.
People still do.
Yes. You take the whole act. It's here. There's nothing like that. The act says that the mandate of the Peace Council is very simple. The object of the council is to facilitate and develop mechanisms for conflict prevention, management, resolution, and to build sustainable peace in the country. That is the object of the council. So there's nothing in this that tells us that you have a power to arrest anybody. We don't have that power. So when people come to us and they expect us to do something, the question is, what can we do? So in most cases, when the police come in or the military comes in, they stop the violence, then we have the opportunity now to go in and talk to people and say, look, let's put down the arms, let's talk and find a solution to some of these things. And in most cases, we've been quite successful.
Well, we'll be wrapping up shortly, but it's always good to learn from past experiences. And I just want to find out from you as we draw the curtain on the conversation, is reflecting on the past experiences, what lessons has the National Peace Council learned in its peace-building efforts? And how have these lessons in any way shaped your current approach to addressing conflicts?
Well, in the first place, peace building is a very complex issue, and it's also time consuming. And that's one of the things the public do not understand. It takes time to get people who are fighting to settle down to say that, look, I'm ready to talk. And so they should be patient with us when it gets to certain issues. It takes time, to get people to say, look, now let's sit down. It's important for us to talk. Sometimes we do a lot of subtle diplomacy between one end to another consistently over a given period until we said, okay, now we are ready to meet the other party.
So are you relying on old approaches, or there are new ways you go about solving these issues?
Well, the old approaches have worked in some way, but we also still have to develop new methods to deal with some of these issues. And we need the support of the whole country in doing this.
Now, one issue that usually comes into the conversation when it comes to peace is our rankings internationally. It's always a brewing conversation in the news space. Oh, we have lost our ranking from here to there. How do they really matter?
Well, it does, because, in terms of the international community, somebody wants to do business in Africa. They are looking at places where they think they can be comfortable. Is the place peaceful? If I put my money here, what is it going to, if I want to go and live there, what is it going to look like? And so these rankings are very, very important, and we must look at it in terms of business, and then I think that the business community must be very interested in some of these things, So it's important for us to preserve these rankings, that when we were the most peaceful country in West Africa, and we lost it last year, it becomes an issue for us. And a lot of countries, so far we've had 12 African countries that have come to Ghana to meet the Peace Council to study what we are doing. And they realize that what we have is unique, and especially the fact that the council members are not appointed by the government. And when we explain to them, these are representatives from various institutions. The institutions nominate their people. And then also, when it comes to the choice of the chairman of the council, that we vote to choose who will be our leader, they sit back and say, wow, this is different. We have never seen this. Some countries are wondering how Muslims and Christians can sit in the same room to talk. And when they come to our meetings and we are fraternizing and chatting, it's like, we've never seen this before. So there's something good happening in Ghana that others are coming here to learn. And we have to deepen these things and lift up our ranking across Africa and across the world.
Well, so in the next few months, as we draw closer to elections, in your vision, what does a peaceful Ghana look like for you?
I believe that a peaceful Ghana is a Ghana where we can have our political rallies devoid of tension. We are competing, but we are not fighting. The politicians should be able to go and campaign on issues devoid of insults, and especially insults against each other and insults against the elderly. This is not the culture of Ghanaians. We need to move away from some of these things. A place where we can freely go and vote, and people can sit back and look at the counting. And once we have done, we are satisfied that it's done. I think it's been said over and over again, elections are won at the polling station. Police your polling station, get the results. Once we are done, we move on as a country, and everybody lives in peace.
Can you assure us on record that we will have peace this year?
With God being our helper, the Peace Council will do whatever we can. And we expect that the public will support us to get that work done.
We should be quite confident that there will be no conflict in any area.
Well, conflict is inevitable, but we have to do everything we can to manage it as much as possible.
Very well. Thank you, Reverend Ernest Adu-Gyamfi. It's been a delight. It's been an insightful conversation. And, do you have any final words before we call it wraps on Town Hall Talk today?
Well, the final word that I want to put to Ghanaians is that Ghana is the only country we have. We have no other place but this country. Let us all do the best we can to preserve the peace and the stability of our country. And we require the support of every member of this nation to get this done.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Ernest Adu-Gyamfi. He has been my guest on tonight's episode of Town Hall Talk here on Asaase 99.5 across affiliate and sister stations. It's been insightful, it's been delightful, and there's a lot to hold on to. Pledges, assurances coming in from the National Peace Council. Indeed, we're hoping to have peaceful elections this year as they also work around ensuring that the conflict-ridden areas come to some consensus to resolving their issues. My name is Caleb Ahenakwa. Do join me same time next week for another conversation. And this show was ably produced by Asaase. and well, technicians also behind the scenes. Theophilus, thank you so much for helping with the MCR controls. Jonah, thank you so much, senior technician, for also helping and assisting to make the show possible. Do join us same time next week and enjoy your weekend.